Welcome back to the show, everybody. We're good. I'm supposed to be on vacation, but I don't mean to put ice water in anybody's veins, but we may be on the brink of a U.S. dollar collapse. And if that happens, then we got to talk about the Black Swan event that got it there. And we got to talk about the possible debt Jubilee that may get us out. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. You can follow us on TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook for exclusive content. $900+ billion market cap for cryptocurrency right now. I want to tell you, it's Coin Paprika. Download the app. Bitcoin 19,100+, Ethereum 1,200. We're 5 cents away from $1,300 Ethereum. XRP right now is at 45 cents at the number 6 spot. You're seeing my favorite list. I'll open it back up so you can see it that way. But there it is, ladies and gentlemen. Right now, if you don't mess around, you can go to Link2 and you could get amazing products. And yes, that's right. PolySign is back on the board. Very excited about that. Ripple obviously still there. How much longer? No one really knows. Acorn's another one, the financial services company, was on there and gone for a while. It's back. So many great products. You see what's going on and what the opportunity is. Link2, Uphold, Zipline. Don't mess around. Click the link if you're accredited. Make sure you check it out and sign up for this free newsletter. While I've been on vacation, I'll tell you what else I've been doing besides just chilling a little bit with the wife. I've also been figuring out new ways that I can get more interactive with all of you and give you more value for it. So this is one way right here, partnering with my sponsor, ProCoin News. I want to let you guys know, sign up right now. You are going to get a free newsletter and it will have exclusive content from me inside of that. I'm telling you, don't mess around. That is going to be massive. And there's huge amounts of value you get from ProCoin News every day in what's going on in the crypto space. Link underneath the videos for all of it. Ever wonder why Congress hasn't reined in Gary Gensler? Well, it's because they're all working together. Not only does he have the blessing from Congress, it's their plan he is pursuing. Don't believe it. It's still true. Shout out to John Deaton for this and everybody else who sent it along. And Wheezy Nerd Nation right here, baby. I'm going to play this clip, and this is Senator Gillibrand and Senator Lummis that have got the crypto bill that everybody's praising. I've said this many times since it came out, and I've said it since SEC picked up Gary Gensler for the chair. They want to make the majority, 99.9% of cryptos, digital asset securities, because that regulatory framework is already proven and in place. This way, the regulators don't have to write an entirely new framework for an entirely new asset class. That's the angle, ladies and gentlemen, like it or not. And let's talk about that right here.
And that's why we chose the existing regulatory framework and just to lay digital assets on top of it, because we know that the SEC has a very strong record in consumer protection and disclosure. And so if some of these assets are determined to be securities, as I think most of them will be determined to be securities, we know that there's a regulator that already has a firm handle and a mature staff in making determinations and requirements with regard to consumer protection and disclosure.
So you would agree with Chairman Gensler that most of them probably are securities, and I take it your legislation isn't meant to change that.
No, it's just that people didn't read it properly. We just said that there are commodities, and Bitcoin is one of them, and Ether and a few others probably are as well, but that there's a test. It's called the Howey test. It's worked, and we updated it to actually work in the framework of digital assets. And if there's 15,000 cryptocurrencies, that means 14,900 and something are securities. So that's a lot of work for the SEC to do.
That is exactly what I've been saying ever since they had made the point that, like, oh, the CFTC is going to regulate crypto as commodities. And what have I been saying? Caveat. Bitcoin and Ethereum are the only two that have been cited to actually be considered what they call cryptos, everyone. And she just confirms it here. And it's because I believe they want to tuck the majority of digital assets into the securities framework because it works, it's proven, it's time tested. That's what makes the SEC versus Ripple case so very, very important. Because I don't believe XRP is a crypto. While that is all being laid out, we understand that the U.S. Federal Reserve reports an operating loss for the first time in a long time. You know what? It says here very quickly, Forbes notes that any operating loss from the Federal Reserve is considered a rare occurrence. This is money not received by the U.S. Treasury. As rates rise, the Fed's cash deficit will only get worse. Then we got this. Shout out to Darren Moore. If you're not following XRP, Darren, I don't know what you're waiting for. Give the guy a follow. Darren, hope you're doing well. This is a clip that he shared here. And by the way, I didn't even mean to get off of this, but very quickly,
just a comment to follow
if I could,
on,
1 second, I got this playing here.
Professor Wen's comment.
This is what happens when you go on vacation. You get out of sorts here. All right. So, and by the way, I had such a poor internet connection. it would take hours and hours to upload stuff. So I'm going to upload a batch of stuff as soon as I'm ready here, because I've just gotten back and I'm not even got the suitcase unpacked here. So give me till the morning and we should be loading up content to make you really go crazy trying to catch up with it all. But at any rate, I wanted to point out here, just like John Deaton has said, check her recent donors out. If you go into her recent donors, no wonder she's such a fan of Bitcoin. Multicoin Capital, Andreessen Horowitz. I mean, come on. I mean, it's ridiculous. And there's more information on that. We'll get into that too. But I want to stay focused. The Fed losing money. Then we have this. Crypto asset paradigm shift is underway. You bet it is. I'm not going to play all of this, but I'm going to play a portion of it to set the tone of what we may be staring down the barrel of. Take a listen.
Let's put the context here, right? Why do we have the US dollar as this global reserve? Okay, the historical perspective was after Bretton Woods, which was this important meeting of all these member nations after World War II. The world's destroyed and in shambles, and we need to create a new monetary system. And at the time, there were basically two competing ideas. There was, John Maynard Keynes leading UK with the consortia to try to create a supranational currency. Okay, so this would be many membership nations come together to create a new international standard for a currency. And then there's the US was the most powerful at the time because they were the one least ravaged by the war, and most economic superpower basically said, hey, we'll just use the US dollar. All you guys just basically peg to the US or exchange with the US dollar. We'll back our US dollar with gold, and then we'll do it, right? So because of the US leverage, US won out. Okay, so all of a sudden, overnight, the U.S. became the global reserve. But what happened, right? Two things happened, right? One, eventually the U.S. dollar depegged, okay, or got off the gold standard. Okay, so before it was backed by, millennial-old gold, right? So that's a good price reference. But then in the 70s, Nixon decided that they didn't want to do this, and all of a sudden, the U.S. had basically a true fiat currency not backed by anything, which allowed the U.S. to print money while basically everyone else in the world had to still use U.S. dollar.
Very quickly, I just want to remind you of the petrodollar and the Henry Kissinger deal that worked out after that to really make it that all oil would be traded in U.S. dollars, which gives it obviously some value as well. Here we go.
So therefore, it gave what the U.S. now has what we call exorbitant privilege to be able to print money at will to finance its wars and economy and stimulus and things like that. And everyone else basically has to, write the checks for it, right? And then, so why do I mention all this, right? It's because the unique advantage of the U.S. dollar is really in the liquidity. Okay, as Shiv showed in the data, 90% of all trade pairs for any FX transaction, the U.S. dollar is on one side of it. right? So if you're a small nation and you're trying to trade with another small nation, you need to go through US dollar because it's the most liquid trade pair to reduce your cost of trade, your FX trade, right? Okay, so but now we're moving to a new world of digital currencies. Okay, what does that give you? When we digitize something, right? But when we digitize information 20 years ago with the internet, what do we do? Before, information was locked in a library or an offline computer, and if you actually had to get at it, you would have to physically go, drive to the library to get access to that information. The digitization made it so that everybody on their laptops could get access to information around the world. So basically, it removed borders, okay, across geographies, across institutions, and also because of the digitization, the cost of delivering that went to zero, okay? So that means apply that to money now, okay? I can get access to global liquidity, right? And I can get access to siloed amounts of liquidity, which is now in this institution, the IMF over here, retail people over here, JP Morgan over here, and I can pool all that global liquidity, right? So now the technology allows me to reduce the cost of the FX using technology, not because you just have a big pool in the US dollar case. Okay.
And just very quickly, I want to remind people that Ripple has patents that allow them to source liquidity from all different kinds of places, at multiple places, I should say, or multiple sources to settle a single transaction. So for the first time, as I had talked to Bob Way about it back in 2019, you could source from several different banks the liquidity needed for one single transaction and go across those networks in order to do so using XRP Ledger and XRP as an example. And I'm not suggesting that's what he's talking about. Keep listening.
So I think technology can solve what I believe to be the primary problem with regard to a new digital currency, which is liquidity. Okay. And the second point is, before you have to, you're using US dollar as the reference trade pair, right? I go from small local currency to US dollar to small local currency. But now the technology allows these two small member nations to directly bilaterally settle in their local currencies with liquidity provided from this global pool from the technology.
Well, wait a minute. What's the global pool? What's the technology? If we're getting away from the dollar, albeit paper or digital, what's that pool going to be?
Not need a reserve currency in between. Okay. So
it says
currencies with liquidity provided from this global pool from the technology does not need a reserve currency in between.
And it's interesting that he says that way, because in my eyes, what you have to have a pool of something to be liquid enough for those small exotic corridors that he was explaining as an example. And when I think of that, that's exactly what Ripple is doing with XRP and remittance companies, because they have a lower height bar for regulation, right? And we have the clarity issue, which is not as hard for them to work with in other countries as it obviously is here in the States. One thing I don't want to sleep on is that in this moment, in this illiquid world we're living in, this liquidity crisis we have of the US dollar, I make no mistake that as far as I can see from where I'm sitting, they need to introduce a new money. But you can't just say, voila, here is 100 billion XRP and it's worth this much. You have to have real value created in a new money. You can't just bless it. Clarity, regulation, legislation blesses it. It gets its value from the liquidity and the utility that currently does exist in this world. And if you listen to the way he was talking about how it's going to be so democratized that friends could have groups where they create stable coins, and he's right. And then there's liquidity here and private stable coin there and private stable coin here and this, that, and the other tokens. That liquidity is so spread out, especially at a time when the world is searching for liquidity. You think that they're not going to regulate that back underneath the hood? You're damn right they are. And I think one of the ways they get it done is by using Ripple software and the XRP ledger. To add to the pressure of the situation and the moment that we're living in, this is not to be an alarmist. Saudi Arabia apparently wants to join BRICS. Well, Saudi Arabia is the actual country that we have the petrodollar relationship with, that all oil is traded in US dollars. BRICS is the same coalition where Putin said, and President Xi, that they have a new payment system to work around SWIFT, and they want to introduce a new international reserve currency to go along with it. It sounds to me like the whole point that I just made about there is an opportunity here to create a new money. BRICS sees it. And I bet you, as DAI says, I bet you dimes to donuts. I bet you the United States sees it too. Remember this back in 2019, 2020 when this came out here? The FedCoin report from R3. Remember this highlight in the report where they break down the use of Ripple's XRP to do the actual FedCoin? I'll give you just a piece of it. An alternative way, says the R3 report, to create FedCoin would be to pre-allocate the entire supply of tokens, say 100 trillion FedCoin. This block would immediately be awarded to the central bank to be held in reserve until they are required. Ripple set the precedent for a 100% pre-allocation at its inception. The entire 100 billion supply of XRP, Ripple's native token, was created outright, much of it retained by Ripple Labs, while the rest was auctioned off or given away. And we know for a fact that there were option contracts done. We just don't know exactly how much was given away and to whom, but they were done. It goes on to explain here the idea about how XRP could be used in the facilitation of a new FedCoin, say FedCoin 2.0. And then they talk about how you could do a peg, whether it's introduced at a $200 bill, 2-to-1, or $100 bill, 4-to-1, with a 50, it's, they break all of this down, how you could peg it to the amount that it needs to be based on essentially the amount of utility and liquidity that's being put up on the network. That's how you get a very real value, ladies and gentlemen. Very, very real value. This is where it goes on to really lock it down for me, because we talked about XRP being a stable coin. I've been attacked for it for a long time, just like I've been attacked for pre-allocation, and they can't stop it. It's real. It happened. To whom? And how many whom's? We don't know. But it's happened. They can argue all they want. They can attack us all they want. But you know what? It doesn't matter. What I do know is it goes on to talk in here as well about the idea of various denomination of banknotes is irrelevant to the maintenance of an inflation target. Thus, we arrive at a stable crypto coin without compromising central bank's ability to follow an independent monetary policy. How about that one? Create a new money, peg it to the old money based on the amount of utility and liquidity flowing across the network, and this thing will arrive at a stable crypto coin. A stable crypto coin. Or how about a stable coin? How about a global stable coin? Then there's this quick clip here which confirmed the option contracts are very, very real. I'll just hit it in a spot here.
It's quite funny. One of the big questions that I was asked
them from dumping, we don't want some other party buying a whole lot of XRP and dumping it on the market. And so we would hypothetically have restrictions about what they could sell and what, how often. And usually those are based upon volume in the market.
Yeah, so you might give them it slightly cheaper, but you say to them, hey, you're not allowed to sell it for 6 months, let's say, or a year.
Yeah, correct. That's basically correct.
There you have it. And shout out to Fred Rispoli. This came from a thread back in September from him. And obviously, it's one of those things where, pre-allocations just, it has happened. We just don't know to actually whom it's taken place with, right? It's how many contracts and to whom. That's the question, not whether they've happened or not. But why are we talking about all this? Well, we're talking about all of this because Saudi Arabia may be joining BRICS. And if they're allowing this conversation to go on without coming out and going, hey, you know what, we didn't say any of that, they're not doing any of that. So they have MOUs, right? So they have these contracts of understanding they're doing with Saudi Arabia right now in BRICS. If they do decide to do that, they're probably going to stop using the US dollar as the petrodollar. Uh-oh. What effect could you imagine that having on the US dollar? I think it would be devastating. I'm not an economist, but that'd be my guess. And then you might just need a new form of money. And that may give a very, very big reason on why we're in a case. And then it would matter greatly to whom you've given these pre-allocated XRP option contracts to. And if we're dealing with the collapse of something like the petrodollar because of Saudi Arabia joining BRICS, that becomes a black swan event. And then we got to start talking about these things people talked about for years now, which is like a NESARA, GESARA, right? Where you have this complete debt wipeout, right? Debt Jubilee. The NESARA is the national economic version of the Recovery Act, and the GESARA is the global one. Or a debt jubilee is a clearance of debt from records across wide sectors or a nation. These ideas have happened before. Just like there has been a different global reserve currency before the US dollar. Very hard to imagine things that have always been this way. But debt jubilees have been an ancient practice carried out from Babylonian Syria. The concept of complete debt annulment isn't necessarily feasible in a modern day America, says Lexington Law. But I say to you, maybe it is if you gave everybody some of the new money that's going to be used, and maybe that ends up being XRP. I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. It's just my digital perspectives. I'll catch all of you on the next one.